It's me, Nick from Knife Phoenix Productions, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different than our standard art tutorial or doorkeeper related content. As some of you may already know that I am a graphic design major. At the time of this recording, I will hopefully be graduating next spring. And I just recently did a commission for Cards of Creation TCG. He has a really interesting looking game. I will have a link to his YouTube channel in the description below. And anyway, today I just kind of wanted to go through the design process that I went through on working with his logo and trying to update it. And also just really for anybody who is interested in graphic design to kind of, see how someone like me does it. And maybe any actual professional graphic designers who have years and years of experience. If you see this and you see anything that you agree with or don't agree with, please leave comments below. So first of all, whenever you are working with a client, you want to establish a relationship. You want to say, like, I am here to help bring your dreams into like reality. I want to bring your vision of like your game, of your product, whatever it is. I want to help make it real for you in a way that is satisfactory to you and to your potential future customers. So I usually start off with kind of like a list of questions afterwards. You can have, kind of similar questions to these. Obviously, you can change however you want. But the questions that I opened up with were, first of all, because this is for a trading card game, a homemade trading card game. And so I first opened up with like themes, like what sort of themes do you incorporate into your game? Like, is your game more so like a fantasy or kind of like a sci-fi set in the future? And then afterwards, I go into kind of the logo itself. I ask if he wants something more akin to like a letter form logo, like the Google logo, for instance. That's just like a G, and it has their kind of four primary colors that they work with for their logo. And then I asked, conversely, if you don't want that, like, do you want something more of like an icon, like the Apple for like Macs and Apple products? And then after that, colors. When you're making a logo or really any kind of general design, you don't want to have dozens and dozens of different colors normally. Normally, you want to stick to just a few basic colors that work well with each other, maybe like a black and white, or maybe kind of a set of complementary colors. It depends on kind of like the tone or the target idea that you're going for with your client. And then after that, just kind of extra, if there's anything about like lore-wise that he wanted to tell me about his game or whatever. So to go through those questions in order, first when I asked about themes, he said he didn't care, it could be anything. For the letter, he said that he wanted the whole word, so the whole Cards of Creation. For icon, he said he wanted something kind of like portally. And then for colors, he was okay with just black and white. But if there was like an additional color, he said purple. So as you can already see, I have, black and kind of white implied, and then some purple over here. We're going to get into that in just a second. And then lastly, I had an additional question I was like, hey, like, do you want your logo to be something just like really simple? Do you want something a little more like textured and complex? And he was like, I'm thinking kind of simple, but like I'm open to whatever like you think of, and that's great. When you work with a client, obviously you want to work within their parameters, but you also want to kind of ask like, hey, like what kind of creative license do I have with this? Like how far am I able to kind of go outside of your idea? At the end of the day, you want to make your client happy first and yourself happy second. You should always have, a little bit, like a degree of pride and kind of like take some pride in your work that you do. You don't want to submit something that you think looks awful to a client, even if they really like it. You want to be very polite, all right, because you're working for them, and you want to maybe suggest if you think that your design isn't really something that you think a lot of people are going to enjoy. You want to kind of just say, give a little bit of input, but again, at the end of the day, they have the final say. Okay, and you always have to remember that you want your client's happiness above yours. So I think that's enough kind of introduction. Let's get right into the design process here. So as you can see, first of all, I started off writing out the name Cards of Creation. This is just it's called Bada Boom BB Fight, type. I thought it was kind of like a really fun, creative kind of font. That's what the kind of idea I get when I look at his game and the kind of cards that he has. Just like really fun and creative. So for as far as the logo, first this was just kind of like a sketch. Your sketch idea is usually not what you're going to end up with. And I was just trying out some different things. First, as far as just kind of like the direction of a letter, I thought I would write out the initials of the game, Cards of Creation, COC. So I had a C here, and then obviously flip that, another C, and then this was kind of supposed to be an O, either in like the negative space or like a filled in O with a circle, but that was just the first one. And as you can see here, I was looking at it, and I was like, kind of looks just like a sideways Pokeball, and I didn't feel that was original enough. So I moved on, and I was like, well, let's work off of this negative space that I was kind of going for in this first design with the vertical kind of implied rectangle cut out there, and just reflect that across the horizontal axis. And I was like, this is kind of interesting. I'm liking what I'm seeing. And then I moved on here to obviously a similar design, but I punched out a little hole in the center to get more of that kind of O vibe. And then before I go on to this design here, I just wanted to point out, because it's called Cards of Creation, and I was trying to think of how to represent creation from like more of a conceptual standpoint. And so I looked up on the internet, I looked up how there's this kind of circle of life design that different religions have variations of, and I also found this alchemic creation symbol. I was looking into that, but I thought, that's still kind of a little complicated. And he said he kind of wanted something more simplistic. So went back to the drawing board. And then here, as you can see, is another typeface I was looking at. It's called Cinzel Decorative. There's a great video about Cinzel Decorative that David Stewart has. That will also be linked in the description. Please check it out. He has a really great channel, but this video in particular is really interesting. It's especially helpful for anyone looking to write their own book and kind of design their own cover for it, because this is like a very fantastic looking font. Fantastic as in fantasy-esque. But anyway, let's get back to these designs up here. So yeah, we're still in the brainstorm kind of phase, and I remembered that he said that he wanted kind of a purple color. I was like, okay. And then also I remember he was talking about like space in our discussion, and kind of like portals and like rifts. And so I had this really kind of simple star idea that I put in the back. And I had a little kind of gradient there in the center from like a white to a purple. Normally, I don't like going from an extreme kind of saturation with like white to a color or black to a color. But for here, I thought it fit just because there was a nice contrast between the white and the black. And so I kind of showed it to him, and we talked a little bit, and then I decided to move ahead with this design, and let's turn that layer off and go to my ideation layer. So as you can see, I tweaked that kind of starburst logo. I obviously added in these kind of gray gradients here, added some kind of 3D effects to it, made it look a little almost kind of like techie or cybery, but still also a little kind of alien. It's like, what is that? So I was going for like that simple kind of idea. I rotated this center part. Just in case you forgot, I'll go back to a previous layer. So this part here was rotated so that the negative space here isn't this cross, but it's more of like an X over in the corners of the stars, or of the star, like that. And then I really needed to kind of see how the logo would look on the back of a card. So I made a nice little template for the back of the card right over here. I did a simple kind of like rectangle, and then added in these shapes here, this kind of arch. And I have the same kind of gradient of orange to yellow throughout the whole thing, and I just put that right into those arches there, put it in the upper kind of left and lower right corners, because I saw a really cool design while I was brainstorming, looking at Pinterest, and just really liked the kind of diagonal, directional look of it, and like that kind of arch connecting the corners. So then I played around a little bit with the font and the logo. Obviously, that black, just that solid black in the background, really wasn't doing it for me, but we will get back to that in a second. And so these were the kind of two ideas I came up with for having the font. Neither of them really kind of stuck with me, and I talked to Cards of Creation, and we had a little discussion, and after our discussion, we came to this final design. Because he was like, hey, like, I like the design. I like the card format. I think it looks pretty cool. Let me send you this background that I have, and that's this purple here. Just a second while I turn off a couple other things so we can see that. There we go. Now you can see it better. So yeah, it's like this swirling kind of purple galaxy. I thought it was really cool as well. So like that's perfect. I'll throw it in there. I threw in the logo. He said he wanted that typeface to be a little more, how do you describe it? He said something kind of like out of the box, a little more creative, dynamic. I was like, okay, I have a perfect font in mind, and I showed him that. He's like, that's awesome. I love it. He originally asked to have this kind of white, and I tested this out with a white color, and just because of the way that there's a lot of white in the background here, and this gray gradient has a lot of lighter elements, the white didn't stand out enough, in my opinion. So I kind of had this orange, and I talked to him about it, because again, at the end of the day, I am providing a service for him, so if he really wanted white, I said I would do it. But it wasn't what I would recommend, and I showed him this orange, and he thought about it, and he's like, you know what? I think I like that orange better. And I thought that was great. Because also we could use that white here because it doesn't stand out as much, but you can still see it. And yeah, that's what the card back kind of ended up looking like. My client was, of course, very satisfied. I had a very fun time working on this. Let me see if I can show you. So obviously I included this print margin. That's why it has like this very sharp corner like that. It kind of sticks out a little farther than normal. If anyone who is watching this knows how the Game Crafter prints things, you need a very kind of significant print margin because there's always a little bit of kind of printing error where things don't quite line up just right. There we go. But this is what the card would look like once it would be cut out, ideally, if everything was perfectly aligned with the printer. And yeah, that pretty much concludes my graphic design process for this particular product. Thank you for watching, and make sure to tune in for future art-related content, especially art tutorials. I'm hoping to get a couple more of those up while I'm not going to classes because of, well, I think you all know why. And yeah, thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe and comment below.